welcome to the Curious Room.
It is so good to be here with you.
I want you to just think about the last time you were truly blindingly angry, like furiously mad. Try to really put yourself back in your own body for a second. You know that feeling where your chest tightens up so much?
Yeah, like an actual physical weight sitting on you.
Exactly, like a weight. Your jaw completely locks up. You can actually hear your own blood just pounding in your ears.
Right. Your entire nervous system is basically screaming at you to do something, to react.
Right. And now I want you to imagine holding that exact explosive physical state, but without letting a single muscle twitch.
Wow.
Without breaking eye contact, without even raising your voice for an hour, while someone is standing just inches away from you, screaming in your face and literally threatening your life.
That is just, that is not peace.
No, that is an internal war zone, and that is what we are getting into today.
Oh.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are doing a deep dive into the deeply hidden, just terrifyingly heavy emotional reality of nonviolent discipline.
Yeah, based on those excerpts we were looking at from the writings on the emotional weight of nonviolent discipline, it is such a powerful text.
It really is, because, see, what history books so often mistake for this effortless, saintly composure.
Right, the halo effect.
Exactly, the halo effect. It was actually a grinding, agonizing biological battle. And our mission today is to completely reframe how you, the listener, view historical resistance.
We really need to move past just looking at the changed laws and those iconic black and white photographs.
Yes, we need to examine the sheer psychological trauma of swallowing your own survival instincts, because honestly, it breaks my heart a little when you really think about it.
See, the thing is, the body at a purely biological level, it does not know the difference between a philosophical political struggle and, say, a predator in the jungle.
Wait, meaning our bodies react the exact same way?
Absolutely. When you are physically threatened or even just deeply humiliated, your biology initiates this massive chemical response. It is designed to make you fight or run away.
The classic fight or flight.
Right. So suppressing that response, it isn't just a matter of having good manners or being polite.
No, of course not.
It requires actively overriding millions of years of evolutionary programming right there in real time.
And honestly, that biological reality, it completely shatters the museum exhibit version of history we are usually handed.
No, it really does. It completely tears it down.
Like, we are so accustomed to viewing nonviolent resistance through this incredibly sanitized, almost painfully safe lens.
Yes, safe is the perfect word for it.
You open a textbook, you see a photograph of a sit-in at a lunch counter or maybe a march across a bridge, and the narrative is just so clean.
It is wrapped up with a neat little bow.
Right. It presents the strategy, it lists the victory, and it just sort of implies this sense of inevitability. Like, of course they won. They were the good guys.
And we crave that cleanliness, in our historical narratives, We desperately want the heroes to act with this perfect, unwavering nobility.
Yeah, we want them to be superheroes.
But look closely at the language we use to describe these movements. We so often use terms like passive resistance.
Oh, passive resistance. I hear that all the time.
But that is a massive misnomer.
I mean, there is absolutely nothing passive about sitting perfectly still while someone pours boiling coffee on you.
Or unleashes a police dog on you. Nothing passive at all.
It is terrifying. But the imagery we are fed is one of pure stoicism. And it creates this illusion that the composure of the resistors was just a natural byproduct of their moral righteousness.
Like they had achieved some sort of enlightened Zen state.
Exactly. It frames it as if they had this spiritual force field that somehow made them completely impervious to the abuse happening right in their faces.
Which is just not humanly possible.
Right. But as I was reading through these concepts late last night, I kept hitting this wall. Why do we do that?
It is a profound question.
I mean, why do we strip away the blood and the sweat and the sheer terror from these narratives? Why replace it with this halo of effortless serenity?
Because it is a defensive mechanism for us, the observer.
Wait, a defensive mechanism? How so?
See, the myth of effortless peace is comforting because it creates distance.
Oh, distance between us and them.
Exactly. If we admit that the people sitting at those lunch counters felt the exact same furious, blinding rage that you just described at the start.
A pounding in the ears, the tight chest.
Right. If we admit they had that same adrenaline spike, that same desperate, burning urge to punch their abuser in the face,
Then what?
then their experience becomes uncomfortably real to us. It becomes something we have to actually feel.
Wow. Yeah, I feel that. Like when you're a kid and you realize Your parents are just flawed people making it up as they go.
Yes, exactly like that.
It is scary to realize the heroes are just flesh and blood.
So by viewing them as superhuman saints who are somehow, immune to natural human emotions, we place them on an unreachable pedestal.
And we let ourselves off the hook.
Precisely.
We just tell ourselves, well, they could endure that because they were fundamentally different from me. I could never do that, so I don't have to try.
Yeah, right. It dehumanizes them, but in the guise of elevating them, which is such a strange thing we do.
It feels strange when you really notice it.
When we pretend that their nonviolence was just the result of a serene, untroubled heart, we entirely erase the actual labor they performed.
They weren't just coasting on a cloud of inner peace.
Not at all. They felt the exact biological surge of rage that any human being would feel when spat upon or degraded or threatened with death.
So the monumental achievement wasn't the absence of anger.
No, the achievement was the second-by-second agonizing choice not to let that anger control their physical actions.
I was actually trying to visualize the sheer mechanics of that choice while I was preparing for this deep dive. And this image just, it lodged itself in my brain.
I would love to hear it.
Okay, so imagine you are standing in a swimming pool. You are chest deep in the water.
Okay, I am picturing it.
And you have this massive, fully inflated beach ball.
Right.
Your one and only task is to hold that highly pressurized ball completely underwater.
Oh, that is incredibly hard to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But to someone standing on the deck of the pool, just looking down at you from a distance, the surface of the water looks totally placid.
Yeah, it looks perfectly calm.
You might even look completely calm standing there, maybe even smiling.
But under the surface, it is a completely different story.
Yes. Under the water, out of sight, your arms are violently shaking.
Because of the pressure pushing back up.
Right. Every single muscle in your core is burning. You are exerting an insane amount of continuous, trembling physical force just to keep that ball from exploding upward and breaking the surface.
That is such a visceral analogy. The outward calmness is an absolute illusion created by massive, unseen effort.
Yeah, and the longer you hold it, the worse it gets.
Exactly. Let's extend that physical reality.
Yeah.
Because it is not just the initial effort of pushing the ball down that breaks you.
No, it is the holding.
It is the prolonged duration. The longer you hold it underwater, the more your stabilizing muscles fatigue.
They just start to get out.
Eventually, the act of suppression becomes more exhausting and more painful than the anger itself.
Because if your attention slips for even a fraction of a second,
If your muscles give out for just a moment,
that ball shoots out of the water with explosive force.
and that dynamic right there is the true emotional reality of nonviolent discipline.
It is the burning, trembling effort of holding the anger down while the abuser piles more and more pressure on top of it.
Exactly.
But, I really need to push back on this idea for a second.
Please do.
Because if we frame nonviolence purely as this agonizing white-knuckle suppression, doesn't that directly contradict the ideology that powered these movements?
How so?
Well, I mean, think about it. These leaders, they constantly preached about love, about viewing the oppressor with compassion, about having genuine inner peace.
Right, that was the core message.
So if you were just violently wrestling your own rage into a dark corner of your mind, aren't you essentially just faking the peace?
That is a really tough question.
Like, does true nonviolence demand actual forgiveness in your heart? Or is it just about having a really, really relentless poker face?
See, that tension right there, that is the central paradox of the entire philosophy.
A paradox.
Yes. It is a fundamental conflict between the philosophical ideal and the physiological reality.
Okay, walk me through that.
The ideology demands love and forgiveness. It paints a picture of a reconciled future. But your nervous system, it is wired exclusively for survival in the present.
Right. The body doesn't care about a reconciled future when someone is holding a weapon.
Exactly. In the heat of the moment, when the physical threat is imminent and real, true nonviolence doesn't necessarily mean your heart is perfectly serene.
It means you are terrified and angry.
Yes. It means your prefrontal cortex, the logical decision-making part of your brain, it is desperately acting as a brake on your primal instincts.
So the peace, it isn't necessarily a state of being in that exact moment of trauma.
No.
It is an action. It is a highly aggressive restraint.
Yes, exactly. What's fascinating here is that the philosophical goal might be ultimate societal peace, but the execution of that strategy on the ground is a state of maximum internal friction.
Wow. Maximum internal friction.
The restraint is the bridge. It connects the violent reality of the present to the peaceful ideal of the future.
But we cannot mistake the bridge for the destination.
Precisely. And operating as that bridge, holding that weight, it takes a devastating toll on the human structure.
Which brings up a terrifying question about the physics of this situation. Like, emotional physics, I guess you could call it.
Emotional physics, I like that.
Because, we always focus on the visible, physical toll of historical protests, right?
Yeah.
The fire hoses, the batons, the arrests.
The things you can capture on a camera.
Yeah. But if you are constantly holding that massive beach ball underwater, exerting that intense internal force just to neutralize your own survival instincts, there has to be a collateral cost to the mind.
Oh, an immense cost. The source text we're looking at highlights this immense psychological toll.
Because the energy has to go somewhere.
Exactly. The idea that an absence of external physical retaliation means an absence of harm is honestly one of the most dangerous misconceptions about nonviolence.
It is like we think if nobody throws a punch, nobody gets hurt.
Right. But the damage doesn't just vanish into thin air, it is simply relocated.
Relocated where?
From the public square directly into the private nervous system of the resistor.
Walk me through the mechanics of that relocation, because this is something I think about a lot, even in daily life.
What do you mean?
Well, say someone is directing sheer vitriolic hatred at you, and your response is to just stand there with your hands at your sides. Where does the energy of that hatred actually go? Kinetic energy doesn't just evaporate.
No, it doesn't. It acts like blunt force trauma to the psyche.
Blunt force trauma. God.
When an oppressor directs violent energy at a resistor, and the resistor flat out refuses to return it or deflect it, they have to absorb it.
They become a sponge.
They become, effectively, a human shock absorber.
Oh, wow. A human shock absorber. That is haunting.
They are taking the kinetic energy of society's hatred, trapping it inside themselves, and forcing their own biology to process it.
So they are literally internalizing the violence to protect the broader movement.
Yes. They protect the movement, they secure the moral high ground, and they prevent the cycle of violence from escalating outwardly.
But at what cost?
They do so by sacrificing their own internal ecosystem. Let's actually look at what happens inside the body when you do this chronically.
Please, yes. Because I want to understand the biology of this.
When you are threatened, your brain floods your system with stress hormones, adrenaline to make you fast, cortisol to keep you alert.
The chemicals of survival.
Right. But this is supposed to be a short-term state. You fight the threat or you run away, and then the physical exertion burns off that chemical cocktail.
And your body goes back to normal.
Returning your body to baseline, yes.
But in a nonviolent action, you don't fight. And you don't run.
Oh, you just stand there.
So you are flooded with these incredibly potent chemicals, and they have absolutely nowhere to go.
Exactly. You are essentially revving a car engine into the red zone while simultaneously standing with all your weight on the brakes.
The machinery just tears itself apart.
It does. When you repeatedly subject yourself to extreme stress and rigidly suppress the physical release, those stress hormones become toxic.
Toxic to your own body.
It leads to profound somatic trauma. The unexpressed motor impulses, the urge to raise your hands to protect your face, the urge to shout, to push back, they all get trapped in the nervous system.
That is just devastating to picture. We're talking about individuals who were hailed as heroes, but internally. They were basically marinating in their own unreleased stress hormones.
That is a very accurate, if difficult, way to phrase it.
What does that do to a person long term? Because, see, we celebrate the macro-level victory of a movement, but we rarely follow the individuals home when the cameras are gone.
The aftermath is where the true, heavy price of staying calm is paid.
When they are finally alone.
Think about what happens to a mechanical shock absorber after years of taking heavy, punishing impacts.
It degrades, it starts to leak.
It loses its elasticity completely. For the human mind, this looks like profound hypervigilance long after the threat is gone.
Because the body doesn't know the protest is over.
Right. It looks like chronic anxiety, night terrors, and just a sheer bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix.
You know those nights where you just stare at the ceiling, replaying an argument, and your chest just feels incredibly tight, and you feel so lonely? Multiply that by 1,000.
Because your nervous system has learned that the world is incredibly dangerous, and more importantly, that your natural defenses are not allowed to be used.
The alarm system just gets stuck in the on position.
Exactly. It gets jammed.
It completely changes how I will ever look at archival footage of these events. I mean, I won't just see brave, stoic people anymore.
What will you see?
I will see people who are actively, in that exact moment, absorbing poison to protect the rest of us. They're paying an invisible, terrible price right there on camera.
It fundamentally shifts the narrative, doesn't it? From one of passive nobility to one of active, agonizing sacrifice.
It really does.
But, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the real genius of looking at history through this lens is that it doesn't just look backward.
What do you mean?
It forces us to look in the mirror. Because while the historical stakes we are discussing are obviously massive, the core biological mechanism at play, it is something every single human being possesses.
And this is where the ideas become almost uncomfortably relatable.
Right.
The assertion is that this deeply personal, emotional struggle, this internalizing of the beach ball, it is something anyone who has ever had to suppress their anger can deeply understand.
The scale and the stakes of a historical civil rights struggle are vastly different from our daily lives. We have to acknowledge that.
Of course, nobody is equating a bad day at the office to a historical human rights struggle.
But the biological and psychological machinery you use to suppress your anger, it is identical.
Really? Identical?
Yes. Your brain does not have a separate gear for historical, world-changing restraint and another gear for everyday frustration.
It's all just the same system.
It uses the exact same physiological braking system.
So, meaning, when I am biting my tongue at a family gathering to avoid a massive argument with a relative,
Yes.
or when I am forcing myself to maintain a neutral face while a boss unfairly criticizes my work,
Absolutely.
the physical exhaustion I feel afterward, that is a microdose of that same historical burden.
It is the exact same mechanism. Just recall the feeling of your blood pressure rising in that office meeting.
Oh, I know it too well. The heat in your face.
The intense focus required to drop your voice into that weird, overly calm register just so you don't escalate a situation.
I guess a customer service voice.
Right. And you walk away from a 10-minute interaction like that feeling completely drained, hollowed out, and just physically fatigued.
You just want to lie down in a dark room and not speak to anyone for hours.
Exactly.
And honestly, that's just from trying to act professional for a few minutes.
Now, take that exact feeling of depletion, that hollowing out, and imagine sustaining it for hours.
I can't even imagine.
Imagine sustaining it for years. Imagine sustaining it when your actual physical safety or the safety of your family is on the line.
It makes you realize how incredibly heavy the burden was.
By recognizing the universal mechanism of emotional suppression in ourselves, we gain this tiny, terrifying window into the staggering magnitude of the endurance those historical figures possessed.
It makes it so real. But if we pull this thread into the reality of modern life, it paints a rather grim picture of our current society.
It does. Why do you say that?
Because we live in a culture where staying calm and being professional are practically mandated in almost every sphere of life.
It is heavily incentivized.
Think about how exhausted you feel after just 1 hour of dealing with an unreasonable person while keeping a smile on your face. Now multiply that by a lifetime.
And in many cases, it is structurally required for survival.
Exactly. Think about the service industry, the corporate world, healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Or just navigating the constant low-level hostility of social media.
It is everywhere.
We demand that people act as emotional sponges. We expect a retail worker to endure screaming insults with a polite smile.
We expect marginalized groups to calmly and patiently educate people who are actively disrespecting them.
Right. Are we as a society collectively paying a massive psychological price by demanding this constant surface-level calmness?
We absolutely are. We are demanding chronic emotional suppression from millions of people on a daily basis.
It just feels so unsustainable.
In psychology, there's a concept regarding emotional labor that distinguishes between surface acting and deep acting.
Surface acting.
Surface acting is when you paste on the smile, but underneath, the beach ball is pushing up hard. You don't actually feel calm, you are just faking it for the sake of the interaction.
Which is what we do all day long.
And it is profoundly alienating and psychologically taxing. When outward calmness becomes a mandatory condition of employment or social acceptance, we are essentially demanding that people pay a hidden tax with their own nervous systems.
A hidden tax. Wow.
And society rarely, if ever, acknowledges the intense labor they are performing just to maintain that illusion of a polite society.
We just expect the water to look calm. We don't care how hard the person is struggling underneath.
Exactly.
But this brings up a really crucial question about how we contextualize all of this. So what does this all mean?
What do you mean?
Well, if we draw this direct line from the monumental historical struggles of nonviolent resistance all the way down to the everyday annoyance of biting my tongue at work, does that risk minimizing the historical reality?
That is a very valid concern.
Like, are we cheapening their sacrifice by saying, oh, I know exactly how they felt because a client yelled at me today and I didn't yell back?
If applied poorly, yes, it could definitely sound trivializing.
Because the stakes are so vastly different.
Exactly. But when understood correctly, it actually does the exact opposite. It elevates our comprehension of their strength.
Elevates it. How so?
See, when a historical figure is presented as a flawless myth, a saint, their strength means absolutely nothing to us.
Because it's not real to us.
Right. It's magic. It is a superpower we just don't possess. We can admire it from afar, but we can't truly appreciate the mechanics of it.
We can't relate to a superhero.
But when you realize that they had the exact same fragile, easily exhausted, anger-prone human nervous system that you do.
The same one that makes my hands shake when I'm mad?
The exact same system that fails you when someone just cuts you off in traffic.
Right.
And yet they still held the line in the face of brutal, systemic violence. That is when their strength becomes truly awe-inspiring.
Oh, I see. It grounds their heroism in a biological reality we can actually measure.
Exactly. It doesn't drag them down to our level at all. It gives us the vocabulary to understand how incredibly high they climbed.
We understand the sheer crushing weight of the boulder they were carrying because we've all picked up pebbles that felt too heavy to hold.
That is beautifully put. It serves as this powerful reminder that their ascent wasn't a graceful float upward on a cloud of moral superiority.
It was a grueling, bloody, invisible crawl.
It was.
You know, this entire exploration completely unravels everything we thought we knew about the aesthetics of peace.
It really dismantles it.
We started by shattering the neat, sanitized myth of effortless historical composure, right? Exposing the burning, trembling effort that is actually required to hold back human nature.
We examine the devastating mechanics of how that effort is achieved. The realization that becoming a human shock absorber,
Internalizing the kinetic energy of hatred.
exactly, how that floods the body with toxic stress and inflicts deep, unseen trauma. The damage of the movement is paid directly by the minds and nervous systems of those who simply refuse to strike back.
It feels so incredibly lonely when you think of it that way, and we connected that massive historical trauma to the universal, everyday exhaustion of emotional suppression.
The things we all feel but rarely talk about.
We saw how the exact same biological machinery is at play whether you are changing the course of history or just trying to survive a really hostile workday.
It is a realization that fundamentally rewrites your understanding of historical courage,
It really does.
while simultaneously making you hyper-aware of the invisible emotional labor happening all around you every single day.
It changes the entire equation. I mean, you look at people differently after realizing this. You look at quiet people differently.
You realize quiet doesn't always mean calm.
Exactly. And it leads me to a final, slightly unsettling thought that I really want you, the listener, to mull over as you go about the rest of your day or as you lie in bed tonight.
It's a heavy thought to sit with.
It is. We always define peace as quiet, as the absence of shouting, the absence of visible conflict in the streets, or even just in our own homes.
We crave that quiet.
We do. But as staying calm exacts such a violently heavy internal price. And if nonviolent discipline is fundamentally an act of ruthlessly suppressing natural, justified anger.
Is it really peace?
Exactly. Is that quiet really peace? If the calm on the surface is only achieved because someone is using every ounce of their strength, sacrificing their own biological well-being to hold that beach ball underwater, maybe we are confusing peace with invisible suffering.
That is a profound distinction. Peace versus hidden suffering.
Maybe we haven't achieved real peace at all. Maybe true peace won't actually exist until we build a world where people no longer have to pay the heavy, hidden internal price of constantly keeping their anger contained.
Until we can all finally just let the beach ball go.
Exactly. Let it go. Thank you for joining us in the Curious Room. Until next time.